Shout out Sniper T on the beat.
Tamara to the break of dawn is on the rise, with life on the forefront of the mind. So line for line, you can ride this brain train and you can change your station without even touching the dial. So relax, stay a little bit, but listen for a while. And whether you're bumping this in the whip or in a business fit, it's a meeting you won't want to miss. A meeting for a meal to feed the soul with words for the mind. So sit back, enjoy the ride. Time to take off, it's time to fly. Cause Tamara till the break of dawn is on the rise.
Hey, y'all. It's me, Tamara. Oh my gosh, y'all. Studio audience. Y'all really just I love when y'all act right, because sometimes y'all get on here and act like y'all don't know what y'all talking about or what y'all supposed to do when y'all supposed to do it. But thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the show. To all my new listeners, new episodes drop every Thursday, so make sure y'all come back through. I generally talk about my life and how I'm trying to grow. I have special guests this today. Yeah, I have special guests today. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. All my regular supporters, y'all already know what it is. Y'all know I can't talk and I'll be messing up on my words all the time, but y'all still come back anyway, and I love it. So if you're not, you should totally be following me on social media. The link to that is in the episode notes. And then you should also subscribe to my YouTube, because it literally, like I say every week, costs $0 to subscribe, and that's a great way to support. There's a lot of different content on there outside of just podcast stuff, so y'all just go ahead and get into it. Let's see, announcements. I'm sure we're going to do a podcast happy hour this month. I don't know when, I don't know who's hosting it, but be on the lookout for that. I think that's it. So I have two guests that I will more officially introduce in a second, but y'all welcome Myron Pierce and Charles Byers.
What
These
up?
are my homies. I really love introducing people that I didn't meet in the podcast community to the podcast community, because I know dope people in real life. And I'm not saying y'all aren't dope. Y'all know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Okay.
Y'all know what I mean. Yeah. So I love bringing the people that I've known forever that have been a part of different phases of my journey to the show. Y'all know the title, so you kind of will hear a lot about the dope stuff they're doing. But before we get into that, and I don't think I've ever done I saw a tweet segment with two people. So this is actually, there's just a lot of new things happening this episode that is super cool. So for y'all that don't know what it is, basically I be on the Twitter, you know what I'm saying? That's my favorite place to network. When I see a tweet that either I feel like goes along with the show that I'm doing, and or I just want to talk about it, or sometimes when I see my guest tweets that are kind of out there, I'm like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and talk about it. I didn't do y'all like that. Like that. You know what I'm saying? But I felt like this tweet that I found is a great topic for us to discuss, because it's a good segue, and I feel like y'all would be kind of experts on this and maybe be able to add to it. So the tweet says, discipline, consistency, and determination are all you need to become successful. So that's it. You don't need nothing else. Would y'all hey, that's what they said. You know what I'm saying? So would y'all agree with that? Would you add to it? I know y'all got some input, because y'all really encourage a lot of people with your content. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Go ahead, bro. You take take it first.
So Mr. Johnny here, mind amplifier. I think it's easy to take. Okay, here's what I say. For Johnny, that may be correct, and for me, that's correct. But when you think about all you need to become successful, the one thing I don't see is money. You need money. Cash flow is king. And so I would say the more disciplined you are and consistent and determined in what you're called to do, yeah, like that's gonna increase your life. You're gonna become better.
Yeah.
But I think there are many more ingredients to success.
Hmm. All right,
Okay.
Charles.
So I think when we talk about like successful, it would be like a category. Like at the end, or at the end of what Myron said is like whatever we define as success with. Because I think like when we talk about hard work, discipline, consistency, and determination is I agree 100%. Like I get that there's a lot more like dynamics to it, but I think like the outline of it would be like disciplining yourself, making sure that you're like just right on the right track. Consistency, you got to keep going, and then determination, like what are you doing it for? Like to me, that's solid foundation. So I do agree, but it's a lot more to it. But if we did not like define success as like hard work, I would agree with this 100%.
I would add kind of like focus and knowing your why. And I love that you said the piece about defining what success is, because that looks different for everybody.
Right.
But I think as you're working towards whatever, any goal, you know what I'm saying? And I know y'all know as entrepreneurs, you're going to have so many things that are going to try to distract you from achieving your goal. And also, if you forget why you're doing what you're doing, when you have those frustrating moments, those setbacks or whatever, you might not overcome them if you don't remember why you did what you did. You know what I'm saying? So, but I do agree though that this is a good skeleton for success. You know what I'm saying? It's a good foundation. But yeah, I love what y'all added to it. And yeah. So guys, here we are on the show. I wanted to have these gentlemen on. Like I said, these are my friends. I've known them, gosh, for a long time. Like,
For a long time.
Yeah, Myron and I, Pastor Myron Pierce. Let's get into
Myron,
it.
you can call me Myron. On the screen it says Myron Pierce.
You right.
My mama gave me.
Okay. But he and I used to do youth ministry together. So he's one of the pastors that I've served under to do youth ministry. And then Charles, I guess Hope Center is, but I wasn't working. It's so funny how many people I met at Hope Center before I was even working there, just going there to visit my friends that work there and, you know, being connected to Ty and Terry. And so it's like, that's where I met you, but it was way before I was even working there.
Yeah, it's like we were like 10 deep.
Oh, definitely.
That's what I'm saying. It's like we got some time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, me and Myron too. We definitely. I feel like I started at Bridge. Was it 08 or 09? So
yeah.
So like we got over a decade in this thing. You know what I'm saying? And yeah. So that's how I met them. And so the reason I wanted to have them come on the Jack of All Trades episode is because, as you guys have heard me say, it's someone who I feel masters many different things. So it's not that they don't master anything, it's that they master so many different things, and that's why they're able to do so many different things, make waves in many different ways. And these two gentlemen are two that I've known and just kind of been watching them online. So we haven't talked in real life in a minute. You know what I'm saying? It's mainly been social media, and I've just kind of been watching what they've been doing separately, but then seeing them come together collectively is why they're both on the show for this particular episode. And so even though he doesn't have pastor on there, he is a pastor. So we'll start with Myron. That's how I met him. He's an author. He's the founder of Shift Omaha, which he'll tell us more about that. So those are a few of the things he's doing. And then Charles is the owner and CEO of Integrity Cleaning Service, and just somebody that I've watched pretty much every goal that I've ever seen him set, he's accomplished, like as I've known him. So it's been really dope to see that. Really cool to see him stepping out on his own. And so together with that, on that whole owning your own business or own the pond, as they say, they are the co-founders of Own The Pond Apparel. And y'all, Own The Pond podcast is coming.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
It's coming.
Yeah. So definitely had to have them come on here because, I mean, look at all they're doing. But also, these are two men who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of just heart to share with other people, put people on game, and not just they rise up. Like, they're really about empowering people and, you know, paying it forward and all that good stuff. And so, yeah, definitely welcome officially. Come on, studio audience.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
That sounds like a toilet, Tamara.
Hey, man. Don't.
All right, clap. They clap for me.
Maybe that was somebody in my bathroom.
Yeah, they clap for me.
Maybe.
Bro.
Hold on. Yeah. Let's. You know what I'm saying? You know. Yeah. So we appreciate y'all, studio audience. Don't go away.
Need y'all.
I love it.
Yeah. So, man, I guess we'll start with Myron. So, when I met you, you were one of the pastors. I mean, you're still a pastor, but he was one of the pastors at the church that we were at that time. And so even then, I've always seen you have a side hustle. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen you own, not to say only pastoring is wrong for those of y'all that do that, but every pastor that I've been close to, like even my brother, they'll usually have something else they're doing to kind of like supplement income. But I see it a little differently with you because it's like you're a pastor, but it's not like you're a pastor who has a side hustle. It's not like you're an entrepreneur who's a side hustle pastor either. You know what I'm saying? It's like I see you equally pour into both of these things and do both really well. What kind of motivated you to become so passionate about entrepreneurship rather than just getting the traditional 9-to-5? Because I do see pastors that do that too, that'll work a 9-to-5 and, you know, all that. So what kind of made you go that route?
Well, so I've always been an entrepreneur, right? And so when we think about, when we say the word entrepreneur, what do we mean? Typically people think we mean somebody who owns a business. That has a caveat to it, but at the end of the day, entrepreneur is somebody who solves problems. And so, and as you solve problems that create value for others, they see the inherent responsibility, right, to match that value. And so I'm so glad you made that distinction, because there are people who may be a pastor and they have a side hustle. That's the mindset they had. I think for me along the way, what I've discovered is that different people have different capacities. Some have a capacity to lead one thing or start one thing and engineer one thing. Others maybe double the capacity and maybe even more. And so for me, I've been on the journey of recognizing that God is giving me capacity. And so if he's giving you a measure of capacity, then we have the responsibility to steward what we're gifted in, what we're passionate about, and what we're skilled in doing. And so it's been a journey for me to embrace that I'm not a pastor with a side hustle. I'm actually a problem solver, and I get to demonstrate how I solve problems on different platforms, you know. And so for me, the why behind any platform that God has given me is simply, I'm called to inspire hope in every single person that I meet. And if I'm doing that in the marketplace, great. If I'm doing that by shepherding and pastoring people, great.
I love it. I love it.
That was good, bro.
The problem solver part is key. I love that. Real quick, because you said this before we started, and I wanna hear your distinction or the difference between a Renaissance man and a jack of all trades. Because I mean, I want to hear it because I use this title and I had to do a little bit of investigating on what a jack of all trades actually truly is, because as I've said, I never subscribe to it meaning, oh, you're mastering none, because everyone that I've seen as a jack of all trades outside of myself, like, you master something and then you can add to it. You know what I'm saying? But Renaissance man, that makes me think of the paintings, like back in the day. So what's the difference for you to where you lean towards that?
So people I'm glad you're clarifying your definition, because I think that matters, because when people customarily think like jack of all trades means that you're just hopping from one thing to the next, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about like your definition sounds a lot like, or what comes to my mind is a Renaissance man or a Renaissance person. And when I think about it that way, it's somebody who's well rounded. They're not typically waiting on the traditional mode of education. They're a free thinker, like all these things that are important, right? And so for me, it's something that you said before the show started, that you can master multiple things, and the mastering of multiple things is based on the capacity that you have to be faithful with what you have, right?
Yeah,
and so I'm cool on how we've landed this definition of jack of all trades, but it does make me think about people like you said, like Michelangelo, or people like Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King wasn't just a pastor. He wasn't just a civil rights activist, right? He was a community engagement leader. I mean, all these things were true of him, but he had the capacity to steward it well.
Yeah.
That man. Come on, Pastor, talking about stewarding well and being faithful with little. You know what I'm saying? The talents, I love that, because that's kind of why I kind of go that way instead of just like you said, hopping around, because that's never been me. Like, even though I use this series to highlight other people, of course. However, the show is at the core based on my life. So I feel like I can define a jack of all trades the way that I do, because I know I haven't hopped around. I know I've been extremely faithful. Something that's always stuck with me when I left Bridge is you saying how I was faithful till the very end. Like, my last day serving was my last day serving, and I served at the same excitement and the same like energy as when I started. And I never really thought that was odd until the further I got in my career, I started seeing that people that they're not faithful. But I feel like, and I don't know if you said this or somebody else said this, but the way you end something is generally the way you start the next thing. Whoever told me that has stuck with me, and being faithful to continue to build on. So with that, yes, you can be well-rounded and add on. You can add on if you're not faithful, but how are you going to be faithful to the next thing if you weren't even faithful to this? How is that next thing going to really grow if you didn't steward well whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing? So I love that. I like that. And I'm a fan of the Renaissance pictures and stuff like that, because it's just such an interesting era of art and stuff like that. So I like that. And so as you're an entrepreneur and you're solving problems, let's talk about Shift Omaha, because what I noticed when I started doing research, because you know how you know what people are doing, but then when you're trying to have them come on and talk about it, you want to make sure you know
Right.
what you're talking about. And so when I went to your website, what I love, because I had saw when you had hired she's the director, correct?
Yeah.
So I saw that and I'm like, oh, that's dope. Just off the strength of it being a Black woman in a director position. I'm like, yes, I love it. But then once I went to your website and I started looking at your leadership, they're faces that I know came through the program. You know what I'm saying? And so there's such a culture within Shift Omaha that I love within any company, where you raise up from within the people that have been faithful, the people that have worked hard and shown whatever, instead of just bringing in people from the outside. Sometimes you do have to bring people in from the outside. I get that. But I love companies that are more about promoting from within, because I feel like it increases employee morale and gives people hope, like, oh, I can move up. You know what I'm saying? I can do more than what I'm doing now if that's their desire. But I definitely want you to talk about that. But just in general, what even birthed the idea for Shift Omaha? Because you're kind of starting to see it a little bit more, people trying to equip, but more often you ask people stuff and they don't tell you anything about how they got to where they got. They just want to be there.
I'm here, made it.
You know what I'm saying? But they're not trying to raise people up. But that's never been you. So what birthed Shift Omaha?
Yeah, I think it goes back to when I actually transitioned out of Bridge Church and moved to Colorado and started a church there and ended up starting a business. And so as I thought about it, I said, man, it's one thing for me to bear fruit. It's one thing for me to be successful. It's one thing for me to grow the bag. But what good does growing the bag do if I'm not helping the people around me grow the bag, helping them identify problems that they need to solve? And so out of that frustration and challenge, I started Thrive Colorado Springs, which was an entrepreneurship incubator that existed to develop communities of color. And so that took me on a journey. The mayor got behind it, the Regional Business Alliance. I mean, it gave us $1 million, and we just became that organization in Southeast Colorado Springs that, promoted raising up the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so armed with that, I learned a lot, eventually came back to Omaha and sat on the idea of, does North Omaha need an incubator? Does it need another incubator? There were other incubators that were already popping before I came back. And so I sat on it for a couple of years. And I felt like the answer came to me that there may be other incubators, but their thumbprint is just like I have a unique thumbprint. So does organizations have a unique thumbprint. And one of the uniquenesses about Shift Omaha is number one, that it's indigenously led.
Come on.
It's not just somebody who started a program from the outside and brought it to the inside. Because that type of toxicity promotes economic injustice and social injustice. And so so armed with that, and then the idea of indigenous leadership that's the face and they're actually leading is just our DNA. And so for Shift Omaha, as we rallied around this new venture and idea, we thought, man, what if 10% of North Omaha was shifted into an entrepreneurial mindset? What would a shift in being a problem solver, coming from a problem creator to a problem solver, how would that impact our community? And so we got audacious and said, well, let's shift Omaha. Let's not just provide business skills, mechanics, all those things. Let's actually work with the mindset. And I think that's the other shift for us. A lot of us who came out the street or came out of an unproductive life, we have entrepreneurs. They may need to be honed in. They may need to be actualized. But the biggest thing for us is helping people shift in the way that they think, in their mindset. And we believe that if we can get people to shift their mind, we can get them to change their life.
Ooh, boy.
You know,
You just said so there, man. Man,
and
that
Charles,
was a
Charles is a product of that. Now, obviously, Charles, him and I have been rocking for a minute. And so a lot of what we have in Shift Omaha, he's been privy to just by relationship and business he started. But being in Shift, I'd say it at least helped him think through some things, not just working in your business. A lot of people where we come from, we know how to work in because we've been so busy working on somebody else's business,
Right.
Mhm.
working for them and paying somebody else's mortgage. And
I
so,
even think like, bro, when you say like as like we come from like the hood, even though we have the entrepreneur like skills, like the hustle, the grind. I think that shift is so important, like in that mindset, which go back to that like skeleton foundation. You can have like the hustle and all that good stuff, but without that shift in the mindset, it's hard to run a business. And like he just said, not just work in the business to play yourself a job. We really good at that, but also let the business run and like give opportunity to people behind you or below you, and then you push them up, and then of course that's how we get that ladder in our community to like keep growing and keep building businesses and keep thriving together. I think people miss that point of like, yeah, it's easy to run a self-made business, but we're doing this to get the community and bring everybody together, and that's how we grow together. Which, you know what I'm saying, is the big word. So
yeah, and I see Shift like a weapon in the hands of the unfortunate, a weapon in the hands of the underdog. Because the reality is, a lot of us, there's a lot of opportunities out there, right? But the gap between accessing those opportunities and the reality is so wide, right? Another thing I think is important is, man, does what we offer, is it contextualized for our people? And that's the beauty of indigenous. It's like, and not just indigenous, but so Shift is a social model in and of itself. What do I mean by that? If somebody started an incubator that doesn't look like me,
come on.
it would hinder someone coming through the doors, not because that program isn't good, but because the cultures are different. People who create programs outside of understanding a culture will always disenfranchise the people that they want to reach. And that's how we end up creating organizations of injustice in inner cities like ours.
The unique thumbprint, I'm gonna piggyback off that, mainly because you are right. There are many different, and I feel like in all realms of, even there's so many podcasts, there's so many hairstylists, there's so many, I mean, there's even a lot of mobile detailing companies. I could think of like 3 of people that I see that do that. So there's always more than one of most things, you know what I'm saying? But I love that you highlighted the importance of, but what you do is needed. Like, you have the people that God has specifically designed that are going to be able to be successful because of the way that you pour into them and the way that you explain business principles plainly. Because I'll see, you know, just even me knowing how you are, you're a very educated person, but you don't over talk people or talk down on people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's important, because how is someone going to actually be responsible to not just work for their business, but run it and market it and all that stuff, if they don't even understand the foundation and the basic principles of what they're supposed to do? So if people just use a lot of business language, that's cool, but what does that even mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Right.
I love that, because, and then also the man, representation is important. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
you see nonprofits here where we live that we can be the ground floor workers, so we can be the frontline workers, we can be the program workers, and that's great. But then when you get into upper management, board, director level and all that, you don't see people that look like the people that they're trying to serve. And what's crazy about that is, especially if you have a program that's like kids or something like that. If kids are seeing this, you're maybe not on purpose, I'm not going to say it's malicious, but what you're doing is you're ultimately creating this ceiling of you can only go this far. Like you can do these type of things. Yeah. But when it comes to being the executive director, heck, being the accountant, you know what I'm saying? Just anything that's out of the typical, I guess we'll just say program. I'll say it like that. And I feel like that ultimately, without being intentional, because I'm not going to say everybody does it intentionally. Some people maybe do, but I try to believe the best about people. So unintentionally, what you're doing is, then you have these stereotypes of, oh, Black people don't do this, Black people don't do that, which that thoroughly irritates me, because in my Black skin, if I'm doing something, Black people do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. So I love the importance of representation. That's what I know. And I'm not saying, and I know you're not someone who is saying only Black people need to work together, like forget white people. You couldn't be like that, because you know what I'm saying? So I know that's not what it is. And that's what I love, because I think there does need to be some work done. We'll just start in our city. We won't even get into the world and all that. There does need to be work done, but I just feel like the pendulum swings too far when you get into saying only Black people and nobody else, because that's basically the opposite of the problem we're trying to fix, just the other way. And so I love seeing, though, that the people that are leaders within Shift Omaha are, man, that they are people who came through the program, that you saw whatever in them, such as with Charles, to say, hey, man, this person, yeah, they might have came through the program, but it's almost like you're not acting like, because this is another thing you see with certain nonprofits, just in general, because I've worked for different ones, or just kind of pay attention to the way people word things or do stuff. You're not one of those people who are like, oh, I did this, look what I did, and like almost hold it over their heads in a sense. Like, you empower people to do what they believe God has called them to do, or the universe, or whatever. Because I know you don't only let believers come through your program. You know what I'm saying? So whatever they believe they're supposed to do, you are just empowering them to be able to do that. But then to see y'all come together for Own the Pond, where I see y'all are co-owners. I don't see it as you promoting it like, yeah, this is me, but yeah, Charles is doing it too. You know what I'm saying? Because some people, you do see some people have that mindset of, oh, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't woo. And so I think that's what I've loved the most about seeing y'all come together, because I always be like, how do people know people? Like, I feel like people that I know, that I didn't introduce them. I'm like, how y'all know each other?
You're my cousin.
Right. Like, I didn't introduce y'all. No, but that's what I've loved seeing, because Charles, I had saw when you graduated from the program, because you posted the pictures. It hasn't even been 6 months, and it's like,
nah, yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love it. So before we get into Own the Pond, let's talk about your journey, Charles. Now, you've always been a really good worker at every job that, you know what I'm saying, that I've known of you working at.
Yeah.
But at what point, because it's like the last time we talked, you were not running your own business, and then and then we talked, I think it was last year, and it's like, oh wow, that's dope. Like, so what what made that shift where you're like, you know what, I'm tired of working for people? Which, let me say this, y'all out there, working for people sometimes is okay, like, because it's not all on you. It's a lot on you, you know, shifting from being a really good employee to being a really good owner. So what sparked that? What has your journey been like?
Okay, so I want to say I'm super grateful for your comment that I was a really good worker, because like that's kind of where I get it all from. It's like my first thing I would say is I was a really good worker. I worked a lot of jobs, and I was kind of like that definition of jack of trades you said earlier. Like I would go work a job, and after I feel like I was maxed out because I knew I couldn't get that CEO position, right? So I knew after I was at the front of the teller line and I'm making big decisions, I said, all right, it's time to quit. I would call my mom and tell her this, and she would say, but it's a really good job. And I'm like, I know, but it's my time to go, you know. And I did that with like debt collection, airport. I was in sales to get my background in sales, and I will work at these jobs just to get like the entrepreneur, and that's where I think I became like I always was gifted to be entrepreneur, but I had to go and work those jobs first. Like I mean, anger management is going to teach you to be kind, you know, to talk to people. And one day I was working at the airport, and I worked there for a really long time, and I was getting called like, you know, racist names and racist comments. And I'm like, this can't be real. This is the airport, you know. It's like this is like everybody neutral. And I called, and this was me and Myron was like, we deep in it, but we wasn't like how we is now. And I said, man, I said, he's my mentor. I said, hey, Myron, I said, they called me, you know, N-word at my job, man. He's like, I was like, what should I do? He said, this is what he told me. I never forget. He said, no one's ever going to believe you. You got to get it on camera. And I'm like, man, it sucks because it was so true. Like he said, no one's ever going to believe you. Like, I can't just go and tell the truth. Like, you know, so I went back and I went with my camera on in my video. And I actually got it. Yo, I got it. I called him back and said, I got it, man. I got it. They said it again. And, you know, I filed and stuff with the state and the state of Nebraska and sent them the footage and all this stuff. And they deemed it not as racism. Like literally not as and they fired me, and it wasn't retaliation. And so after that, like
wait. I'm sorry. And I try not to like interrupt people. Hold up. So they called you the N-word.
Oh, it was bad.
On camera.
Porch monkey.
Wow.
Talking about my mom asked me like made like about, you know, like dad jokes, black not having dad around and stuff like that.
And it was not rough. The N-word, that was enough. That's enough, not racism.
Know. Come on. State of Nebraska deemed it not as racism. And like it's an airline, so like of course the lawyer up, I mean, you're gonna need a couple of million, you know, they got stuff like that all day long, you know. So and so at that point in my life, like I knew that I wasn't in control no more, and that nothing I could do would get my satisfaction. So then I gave it to God, and I end up like, you know, quit my job and start Integrity. And it was slow, and I was still scared to run it. I feel like I got kind of pushed into it, or I would never have went, you know. And you know, by the grace of God, it's been such a blessing and a payoff. And it's like I've always been good at cleaning, and so I kind of just like shifted to what I like to do. I was good with people all the time, so now I know I can talk myself into, you know, clients and just hard working, you know. So I knew the work was going to get completely done. So I mean, it's been like a big blessing for me. But I did, like I said, working those jobs, those like 10, 12 years since I was a teenager, though, that's what built this. So I can't say without that, it's gonna be tough. Like it's gonna be tough anyways, though. But like I'm grateful for my experiences too, though. Like I mean, the emotional ones, the physical ones, I mean, just the mental one. I mean, just all of it. I'm super grateful because without that, I mean, I don't know where I would be. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just super grateful.
The journey prepares you for where you're going. Always. I love that, because people often want to own their own business, and I would never discourage anybody from doing that. I mean, I would be a hypocrite if I did, but I always let people know that the journey's preparing you. So like you said, the things that you learned about sales, about working with people, about conflict resolution and all that good stuff, and even having gone through that experience with that airline that you worked for, even I feel like some stuff like that is like, this is stuff teaching you what not to do. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But ultimately it's always preparing you. But yeah, you've definitely been a good worker, and you have to be a good employee. You do
Yeah.
have to have that discipline if you're going to run your own company,
Mhm.
because that's when like you're accountable to yourself. Like, yeah, you may have investors and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but if you don't have, and even when you have that, at the end of the day, you have to hold yourself accountable
Right.
to it. So then you went through Shift Omaha. So
Yeah.
it's a 16-week program, I think I read.
Yep, it's 16 weeks, but I think that even like having a relationship, like back, like when you said you like the points that Myron put out as far as like disciple or putting like, pouring into someone. It's like, this was my guy, my mentor. So he poured into me those years without even me even, I was shifting and I didn't even know it. But I mean, he like, and then it's like, I'm gonna shift you past entrepreneur. I'm gonna shift you to serial entrepreneur, business owner, opportunity giver, disciple makers, like. Now we're gonna shift you to like, and not the next me, but like we're gonna keep building you. Like when I got somebody next to me, I can pour a lot into them. And so just the years of us being friends and just mentoring and just like, father son, is like he's poured so much into me to now I can go pour into somebody. So and shift for 16 weeks for me is like, yeah, I got to shift with this guy for 5 years, but the 16 weeks really got me like locked in, focused. It'd be the small things we miss that we need just to get the engine running. And so after I went through shift, I think I turned myself up to another level to now. It was like, all right, now multiple businesses. Now we're looking at 7 streams of income. Now we're looking at, giving somebody a business, like letting them start and then seeing stuff grow from there. So I think I shifted way more than just, 16 weeks, this guy, like, but yeah, 16 weeks.
Yeah. Myron, what are some of the, without saying too much, but like, what are some of the core? Okay, 2 questions. One, how does somebody, because there are listeners all over, the country, the world, I guess I really should say. So there may be people in Omaha that they are wanting to start, a business, but it can be scary when you don't know where to start. And I love that it's 16 weeks, because I feel like it's long enough to kind of go in depth with. I don't even know what y'all teach, but I just know what is kind of needed from what I've learned from my experience. So I can only imagine, but like in that 16 weeks, shifting the mind, that is so, I love how you focused on that, because if you don't shift your mindset, it's kind of where you have those, you see it a lot with athletes where they still have the poverty mindset, but then they get millions of dollars, and nobody understands why they're broke quickly after, because their mindset never shifted. So if somebody wants to be a part of Shift Omaha, how do they be a part of it? And then also, what are just some of like the core, I guess, teaching topics that y'all focus on within the program?
I think for us also, what's important to us is that the program is a part of an ecosystem, and I think that's the other differentiator is that we're not just trying to create a good program, we're trying to build a great ecosystem. And so, but within that 16 weeks, there are three kind of components. Number one is the training component, and that's where we take entrepreneurs through the 8 different shifts that are necessary to become a great entrepreneur, right? And then there's the mentoring side of things. So then we partner with the business excuse me, we partner with the business community. And the reason why we do that is because a lot of our people lack social capital. So we'll have a person like my friend Bill Stevens, who owns We Stevens accounting firm. We'll come have him, attend on a Saturday, and they're required 2 to 3 times a month to join our mentoring session. So we'll have a Bill come in, and Bill, number one, shares his story. Number 2, talks about the best practices of legal structures and taxes and things like that. and then gives our people an opportunity to engage in dialogue. So what that does is, number one, helps inform where they need to be in their business as it pertains to one of those disciplines. Secondly, we start a new relationship, right? And so social capital is being increased, because we already know it's who you know that changes your net worth, not just what you know, right? And then thirdly, there's a resource component. We say, hey, as an organization, let's do what we can to get into your hands a micro grant. Let's do what we can to get into your hands a laptop. Let's do what we can to get into your hands you taking your next step in your business based on the relationships that we have, right? So that's the 16 weeks. But then also, after they step out of that 16 weeks, the goal is them joining our business networking group, which is a part of the ecosystem, right? And then we're adding the endowment fund. The endowment fund gives us the ability to build a big enough bag where we can accrue interest and then use that as micro grant funding for our entrepreneurs. The other thing is in our ecosystem that we're dreaming about is a financial institution. Right?
Yeah, man.
People need an opportunity like us, because here's the thing: when we talk about getting funding, there are two big hurdles: the credit score and the criminal history.
Yeah.
Those two make it hard for anybody to make it, right? And so those are hurdles we want to grow over. Obviously, there's more to the ecosystem that we're learning, but those who are successful are those that have been faithful to attending our training, being mentored, and us coming alongside to help resource them.
That's it's intense, and I like that. And the reason why I like that is because if you have a program that's too quick or just kind of like tells them what they need to do but doesn't walk alongside them as needed in some instances, if you don't connect them with someone that can walk alongside them, that can be problematic. But also I'm seeing a lot of let's back up. The networking with people, man, like in my life, it has been who I know has been why I've been able to walk through certain doors. Now, I knew what I needed to know to stay there, and I knew what I, was a good worker and all that stuff. But there have like people will mention your name in rooms that you're not even in when you know the right people that are for you and that are. Hold on. Oh, okay. When you know the right people that are for you and actually, trying to empower you. But I'm seeing a lot of talk lately about having more basically banks built and stuff like that, and just a lot of the hurdles that we face trying to get funding. I mean, even just loans and home ownership, and we're not going to get into the history of what that has looked like
or should we?
I mean, we can, you know what I'm saying? Because that probably plays a part into why you guys are doing things the way that you're doing. So we definitely can. But I like that there's a big thing of marketing is what problem are you trying to solve? Like that's ultimately one of the biggest, it's the reason why commercials advertise the way they do, you know what I'm saying? And so I love it. But let's get into Own the Pond, you know what I'm saying? How did y'all come up with that idea, and when did you come up with it? Because I know that when an idea is birthed isn't always necessarily when the public hears about it.
Well, like it's been brewing in the heart of Black people since we came to this country.
Yeah.
It's actually been brewing in us. Like when we come over on the ships and our labor is used to build a country, work, right? Enforced by the dark side of capitalism. then our ancestors deep down wanted to not only be free, they wanted to own something that belonged to them. And the powers to be, who were the owners, built everything on the back of us, and along with
Mhm.
other different people groups. And so for us, we've always been told, and not just told, we've been showed that we have something to offer you. Get in line at this pantry so we can give you
Mhm.
food, so we can give you some fish. We know that in our community, right? I grew up in the project, standing at the at the top of the hill, waiting in the pantry line, and there's
Yeah.
a level of fuzziness that people feel when they want to be philanthropic. Problem is, toxic philanthropy is pillaging our community.
Mhm.
Secondly, we're told, give a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And what that says to me is work. I'm going to teach you something where you can work in a job and fund somebody else's dream for the rest of your life,
Mhm.
and then you die, and then your kids don't get anything. And so I thought, we thought that there's a better way and there's a different way to not just, you know, be fed fish, be taught how to fish,
Right.
actually own the pond. So the whole idea of own the pond is a metaphor, and we know that metaphors change stories. If I see myself as as an empty bucket, metaphorically, then every decision, action or inaction, mindset, belief, and my behaviors are consistent with the metaphors that we use to see ourselves.
Mhm.
And so on the pond is an opportunity for us to consider another metaphor, that actually ownership really does matter, and legacy really does matter, and inheritance really does matter, and
Mhm.
how we build wealth not just for our lifetime but for the next generations, right? Up to
Right.
200 years is how we see it, right? We need to build dynasties. One thing China has taught the world is the power of a dynasty,
Mhm.
right? And if we could grasp the idea of ownership, then we can be more dynastic in our approach to the future.
Right.
What would you add, Charles?
I would just add too back to that ownership. I don't think we understand that ownership bring, and I always say this too, but it's like you buy yourself something nice, and then when it comes that it comes responsibility, upkeep, maintenance. But I think we forget too that like with that like those pieces of like the maintenance, the accountability, like you grow people behind you. So I don't think we forget. Like I love owning the pond, but it's not just me to get up there and be like I own something. It's so I can feed the people behind me too and show them the same thing. Like I don't own nothing because my mom didn't own nothing. We ain't never owned nothing for real. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and now I'm breaking that right now. I'm gonna start as an owner, and then my kids will be owners, and then they grow owners. And I think as a community, and I'm really stuck on community basis, like that grows. So like, if I build a relationship with this guy and my kid and now his son, now they work with each other, and that's how we keep the community growing because our community is slowly dying as we know. But that's how we keep it growing and keep growing as a unity as like together as people.
It
So
really
I mean
is
that's
a
what
it
that's what
really
I would
is a
say.
mess. Yeah, it really is a message of hope.
Yeah, it's
That
like it's
that
like everything we
yeah.
do. I don't think there's more than one way to own a pond. Like it's like I don't. It's hard to really say what it means all the time. For right now in my season of life is business is growing, but it's not just to own. It's like what
Mhm.
I'm gonna do with this ownership and responsibility that comes with it as well too is huge. So
So you guys have apparel, you have a podcast. What
yeah.
can they expect? When does that launch? And what can they expect as far as like what are you going to talk about? How consistently are you guys going to drop? Just because I'm all about, man, go listen to them. I'm not
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
like that's not what you're gonna get on this show, and people can definitely listen to more than one podcast. And y'all see the gems they're dropping now. Imagine that just if that's the whole episode, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Especially for those of
Yeah.
y'all that want to even just be inspired. You may already own a business, but you never are done growing and evolving as long as you're still breathing. So what can they expect with that?
Yeah, so you can expect to draw from a pool of experiences and perspectives and walk away equipped with conversations and tools that can help you foster ownership. We want people to walk away and close their laptop, close their phone, saying, "All right, let's get busy owning the pond." Right.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be an opportunity to learn about best business practices, paradigms, perspectives. We'll have guests on, but it's really an equipping. It's a lab for people to come in and be equipped. And we're not professionals, but we are practitioners.
Come
And
on,
so
bro.
you're going to get practitioners, weekly that are, going through the same thing we're going through. Like maybe you want to become a homeowner, right?
Mhm.
And you're wrestling with not having a bank that want to back you. How do you get started to own your home? How much does it cost? What's the percentage? What's the
Yeah.
breakdown? So we're just gonna go there. It's just Myron and Chuck. We're just gonna go there. Life is happening. We want to invite people into the life.
I would
Right.
say raw. I would say raw too. Like we find ourselves having these like deep organic conversations, and like we want people to be able to hear this. And another big thing too is all out of love. Like you said, we're not experts at this, but we do like love what we do and love to love on people and just and watch our grow. So it's like I want people just to listen and just like man, but like them dudes they're just chopping it up. Like don't take it, to the heart. Just chop it up and just get some game from it and go do you. You know what I'm saying? It's like so.
It's free content, so
Yeah.
they should appreciate it
Yeah.
regardless. That's always my motto. Where can people purchase Own the Pond Apparel?
OwnThePondApparel.com.
I feel it.
We make it
Yeah.
easy for y'all. Same for the
Use promo code OTP25
OTP
for
25.
for a 25% discount.
we got
Okay.
some new drops too. I'm talking hot. They hot.
OTP 25. I'm gonna put that in I'm gonna put all your like social media handles in the episode notes, the links to your websites and all that good stuff so they can follow you or buy stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Before we go, one piece of advice. I mean, you've actually dropped lots of piece of advice through this whole episode, but what is one piece of advice that you would want to leave with my listeners to just really get them going after they're done listening to this episode? And it doesn't have to be related to owning a business, just whatever.
Yeah, two words come to my mind. And Tamara, I've seen this in your life. That's where you've been an inspiration with everything that you've gone through, and like just to see where you're at today. Your podcast, you're helping equip people with business. Your apparel, and all that you accomplished. What comes to my mind as a piece of advice is don't quit. Don't quit. Nike say just do it, but I say just don't quit.
Mm, I appreciate that. I
Straight
love
up.
that. I like flipping it too. Don't quit. Yep.
Yeah. I like that. And so what I would say is like, and just I gotta say it again, but seeing y'all just two on here together, like all of us together is making my heart just like super warm. But like, no, for real, man, because like I would say like invest in like real relationships, man, like genuine ones, like ones you can see yourself 10 years on the road with, and y'all both growing and uplifting each other, like. And I also want to just say I think relationships are weird, like as far as like they're gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna be hard conversations and that, but like the only time you grow is when you're uncomfortable. So they
Mm.
say when you're on the edge of your comfort zone, that's when you know you're growing. And I would just say like get uncomfortable, y'all. Like rock with somebody, man, and get tight with them and just grow together and then build up other people. It's like it's super important. So that'll be mine.
Love it, love it, love it. Fellas, man, thank you. Thank you so much for
Yes.
your time. I know y'all
Be
are
glad to be
super
here.
busy. The rest of y'all listening, make sure you take care of your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. Be healthy in your relationships. Wear your mask, you know what I'm saying? When you're out here. Nah, I ain't gonna say nah. You know what? I am a fan just because I can't believe we used to breathe the same air as people.
Man.
I be thinking about a lot of stuff, and it's cold season, and
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's definitely why I'm saying it. I don't know where we're at with COVID anymore. We don't hear about it anymore, and so
You know, when I went to Tokyo a couple years ago, everybody has a mask in public, and it's a cultural thing where they, like, if you come out with a cold, they're like, hey, I'm going to cover up to protect everybody. So it's very interesting the way that other countries view like taking care of one another, preferring one another. So I learned a lot just being in that culture.
Yeah, you are very well traveled. I'm seeing you are out here going all kinds of places.
It'll change it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them get up out of here. They have stuff to do. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all come back next week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Ladies and gents, this concludes transmission. Tune in next time for a whole new edition. Another adventure and mission to share, be heard, and clarify the vision of this whole new world for